My son called. Dad, he hit me, and now I'm under arrest. So I put on my uniform and took him down myself. Hi, I'm Arthur, 51, and 3 nights ago, I got a call that made the world stop spinning. Dad, my son whispered. I'm at the police station. My stepdad hit me, and he's filing charges against me. I asked one question. Which officer? He said. Sergeant Williams. I said. Sit tight. I'll be there in 20. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't make a scene. I showed up in uniform. When Sergeant Williams saw me, full dress blues, captain's badge gleaming under the station lights, his face drained of color like the truth had walked through the door. Because this wasn't just another domestic dispute. This was a father on warpath mode. And what happened next? Let's just say it rewrote everything. But before I tell you what went down in that interview room, I need to rewind. 2 years. That's how long I'd been warning Jessica, my ex-wife, about Victor Harrison. 2 years of gut feelings, bruises that just happened. Tyler getting quieter, smaller. And 2 years of hearing, you're just jealous, Arthur. No. I wasn't jealous. I was a father with combat instincts sharpened by a lifetime of war zones, Afghanistan first, then the urban battlefield of this city. I know a predator when I see one. And Victor? He was a walking red flag in a luxury suit. Jessica met him 6 months after the divorce. At some charity gala. I still remember her call. He's different, Arthur. Steady. Reliable. He was steady, all right. Steady in manipulation. Steady in control. First, it was little things. Telling Tyler to man up. Then trying to cancel his football practices, saying they were a waste of time. Then the bruises. I knew the signs. Hell, I've responded to hundreds of calls just like this. But this wasn't a call. This was my son. When I picked Tyler up from my brother's garage and saw the black eye blooming under his hood, the grip marks on his arms, it didn't matter that I was his dad. I became the captain. I built the report like I'd build any case. Photos. Witness statement. Medical documentation. Textbook. Except this textbook? It had my name on the cover. Tyler told me everything. The hallway confrontation. The threats. The words Victor spat like they came from a drill sergeant who never served. You need to learn discipline. Your dad's too busy playing cop to raise you. He pushed my kid. Then he punched him. And then, like the coward he is, he ran to the police first and tried to play victim. He filed a report claiming my 16-year-old son attacked him. That's why I walked into that station that night not just as a dad, but as Captain Arthur Kane. Because sometimes, the badge isn't just a symbol of the law. It's a reminder that some lines don't get crossed. Not without consequences. The station buzzed with fluorescent quiet, the kind where everything feels normal until you realize you're walking into a crime scene that hasn't admitted it's a crime yet. Victor Harrison was already in interview room 2. Through the one-way glass, I saw him seated like he owned the place. Polished. Calm. Playing the victim with a bruised rib and just enough smugness to make you want to rearrange his dental work. He was selling the lie like a pro. Said Tyler had. Snapped. Said he tried to calm him down. Said he was afraid for his safety. If I hadn't trained half the people in that building, I might have believed him too. But I knew better. So did Lieutenant Mitchell, my second in command. He met me outside the observation room with a tight nod. He's smart, Mitchell said, low voice. Came in an hour after it happened. Said he was filing a preemptive report because you were emotionally unstable. Used those exact words. I nodded. I'd seen this tactic before. Abusers know the system. They know how to use it. File first, shape the story, make the real victim look like the aggressor. What Victor didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this for months. Tyler's medical report was already on file. The photos? Time-stamped. The witness statement? Already taken, signed, and secured. Victor thought he was playing chess. I was playing chess with a grenade. Detective Karen Stevens was en route. She's from Special Victims, 15 years of dealing with manipulative liars just like him. Stevens has a gift. She can smell a cover story before it's even finished. Captain, she said when she arrived, eyeing the folder I handed her. Is this personal? It's my son, I said. But I want this airtight. By the book. She raised an eyebrow. You really want me to treat this like any other case? I want you to treat it worse. I want you to bury him in facts so deep his lawyer needs scuba gear. She grinned like someone just gave her an early Christmas bonus. Inside, Tyler sat across the hall, waiting with my brother. The bruise under his eye had darkened into an angry sunset, and even though he sat tall, I could see it. The quiet tension, the shame kids carry like it's theirs to own. It wasn't. This wasn't his to carry. Stevens will interview you, champ, I said, squatting beside him. Just tell her everything. Exactly as it happened. No edits. No softening. He nodded. He said he'd ruin you, Dad. He tried. I said. Now we ruin him, the right way. Victor thought he was safe. He thought the badge made me a threat to hide from. He forgot the badge also made me unstoppable. Victor Harrison was arrested at 8:47 p.m. And when the cuffs snapped shut, it wasn't with drama. It was with certainty, like the laws he thought he could twist just turned around and bit him in the throat. Frank Mitchell read him his rights while Victor flailed in protest, still clinging to the fantasy that he'd somehow control this story. You're arresting the wrong person, he shouted. This is harassment. That kid's been unstable for months. I'm the victim here. Mr. Harrison, Mitchell said coolly. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. And for the first time since this began, Victor looked scared. Not angry. Not smug. Scared. Because his entire performance, the bruises, the self-defense speech, the crocodile tears, meant nothing once the medical report landed. Dr. Wong's findings were irrefutable. The bruises on Tyler's arms weren't from a scuffle. They were from gripping force. Pressure points aligned perfectly with adult-sized hands. Facial bruising consistent with a full-strength punch from a taller opponent. Even his own timeline didn't match. Said Tyler attacked him in the kitchen at 10 a.m. Problem was, Tyler was already at my brother's garage by 9:30. Victor filed a report before the bruises would have even had time to form. He thought being first would make him right. But he forgot the golden rule of law enforcement. Facts don't lie, people do. Jessica showed up 10 minutes after Victor was booked. I'll never forget her face, equal parts horror and heartbreak. She looked at Tyler, saw the gauze over his cheekbone, the swelling, the tremble in his jaw, and something inside her broke. I didn't know, she whispered. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't want to believe it. She opened her mouth, but there was no comeback. No defense. Because this wasn't just about Victor anymore. This was about the years of silence. The excuses? The blind spots. You brought a wolf into the house, I said, my voice like gravel. And he went after our son. CPS showed up within the hour. Took statements. Took photos. Took everything seriously, which was more than I could say for Jessica up to that point. Victor's bail was posted the next morning, $50,000, wired by his business partner. He walked out like a man still convinced the truth wouldn't stick. He was wrong. Because the moment he crossed that line, from intimidation to violence, he didn't just break a rule. He stepped into my arena. And I don't lose in my arena. Victor made his first mistake when he hit my son. He made his second mistake when he lied to the police. But his third mistake, the one that sealed his fate, was thinking he could turn public opinion into a shield. An hour after he made bail, Victor posted a long Facebook rant claiming he was the victim of a vindictive ex-husband with a badge and an agenda. He tagged fathers' rights groups. He tagged local news. He even tagged the precinct's public page like he wanted a fight. The comments section turned into a circus. Half the people praised him like he was a martyr. The other half asked why a 6 feet 2 inches contractor feared for his life against a 16-year-old. It would have been funny if it wasn't pathetic. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Every post, every comment, every word he typed was evidence, proof that he was unraveling. And it was all time-stamped, public, and admissible. But even then, I knew men like Victor rarely go down quietly. 3 days later, at 2:47 a.m., the phone call came. Dad, he found us. Victor's outside the cabin. My blood went sub-zero. Tyler's voice cracked as he whispered. He's trying to break in. Uncle Ryan called the cops. He's got a crowbar. I didn't hear the rest because I was already moving, phone under my chin, uniform flying on, service weapon locked at my side. Put Ryan on, I said. Ryan's voice was tight. He's screaming, Arthur. Said Tyler ruined his life. Said he'd kill us, then himself. Police are 15 minutes out. Barricade the bedroom, dresser against the door. Do not engage. I'm coming. It's a 2-hour drive. Ryan snapped. You won't make. But he didn't know what a father becomes when his child is hunted. I was out the door before he finished the sentence. The drive was a blur of back roads and headlights. A 2-hour sprint I finished in just over one. When I arrived, 3 cruisers were already there, lights washing the trees in red and blue. And Victor? He was on the ground in cuffs, rage twisting his face like a demon that finally got caught in daylight. The crowbar he used to pry at the back door was still lying in the dirt. Sergeant Williams briefed me. Captain, we've got him on breaking and entering, stalking, violation of the restraining order, and terroristic threats. Kid heard everything. Then he handed me the GPS tracker report. Victor had spent 6 hours circling the woods, checking every cabin one by one, hunting my family like prey. 6 hours. It wasn't a loss of control. It was a plan. Tyler stood in the doorway of the cabin, shaken but alive. When he saw me, he didn't cry. Didn't collapse. He just whispered. He said he was going to kill us all. I put a hand on his shoulder. He won't hurt you again. Ever. Victor glared at me as they pushed him into the cruiser. This isn't over, Kane. He was right. It wasn't over. It was just the beginning of the end. Victor's second arrest blew the case wide open. His lawyer, James Porter, that James Porter, showed up at the precinct less than 2 hours later. Expensive suit, crocodile smile, and an ego big enough to have its own area code. Porter tried every trick in the book. Mr. Harrison was under emotional distress. He has no prior record. He merely violated bail conditions due to confusion about property lines. I sat in the observation room, arms crossed, watching him spin fiction like it was billable gold. But this wasn't his courtroom. Not today. Because Victor didn't just violate bail. He hunted my son across state lines. 6 hours of GPS data. A crowbar at the back door. Verbal threats overheard by 2 witnesses and recorded on police body cam. Not to mention the part where he said on tape, I'm going to kill all of you. Tyler, you're dead. Then your cop father. Then me. That's not emotional distress. That's premeditated rage. And the judge? She wasn't buying any of Porter's nonsense. At arraignment the next morning, Victor stood in an orange jumpsuit looking like someone finally unplugged the smug out of him. Judge Patricia Martinez read through the charges with the slow, steady weight of someone enjoying the echo of justice. Mr. Harrison, she said, you were out on bail for assaulting a minor, with explicit GPS monitoring and a court-issued restraining order. You not only violated both, you crossed state lines to stalk your victim to a remote location, armed yourself with a weapon, and made verbal threats of murder. Porter interjected. Your Honor, my client will remain in custody. She snapped. Bail is denied. Victor flinched like he'd just been hit again, only this time by reality. I watched from the back row as they cuffed him again. This time, there was no shouting. No protest. Just that twitch in his jaw, the one abusers get when the system doesn't bend. He locked eyes with me as they led him out. And I didn't blink. Because in that courtroom, I wasn't a captain. I wasn't a veteran. I wasn't even a father. I was the line. And Victor just learned that when you cross it, you answer to me. The trial prep was a war in slow motion. James Porter filed every delay tactic in his playbook, motions to suppress evidence, claims of investigative bias, even a desperate Hail Mary request to move the trial out of state. Media attention, he argued. My client can't get a fair trial in this jurisdiction. The judge stared at him like he just asked her to cancel gravity. Motion denied. Behind closed doors, I worked with the prosecution team every spare moment I had. Assistant DA Rachel Morrison, sharp, methodical, and absolutely allergic to bull, was leading the charge. We're not just proving guilt, she said. We're proving pattern. This wasn't one incident. This was escalation. And she was right. We had it all. Dr. Wong's medical report? Detailed down to the millimeter, matching every bruise to time, angle, and force. GPS logs? Mapped out 6 hours of Victor's stalking route like breadcrumbs to a trap. The 911 recording? Chilling. You could hear Victor shouting. You ruined my life, Tyler. You think you're safe? You're dead. And then your cop daddy, too. Ryan testified about that night at the cabin. His voice never shook, but his hands did. He wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to end something. Tyler gave his final interview with Stevens 2 weeks before the trial. He was composed, calm, and heartbreakingly precise. He pinned me against the hallway wall. Told me I needed to learn discipline. Said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never saw my dad again. He didn't flinch. He didn't exaggerate. He just told the truth, the kind of truth you don't need to dress up because it hits like a punch to the soul. Jessica, to her credit, gave her statement too. I thought he was saving us, she said quietly. Turns out, I handed my son to a monster in a tailored suit. Porter tried to dismiss it as emotional manipulation. Rachel pulled up texts Victor sent Jessica days before the attack. One of them read, "You need to put your ex in his place. That boy is a problem. I'll handle it." The courtroom was silent. Even Porter stopped objecting. Victor's golden image, his polished reputation, his contractor of the year persona, all of it had turned to ash on the stand. The jury looked like they wanted to crawl out of their seats and arrest him again themselves. And the trial hadn't even started yet. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a reckoning. Day 1 of the trial, Victor walked into the courtroom like he still thought he could charm his way out of a felony conviction. Pressed suit. Clean shave. Face like a guy on a real estate billboard, not someone facing 5 criminal charges, including assault on a minor and terroristic threats. But the minute the prosecution opened their case, the cracks started showing. Rachel Morrison's voice was even, but deadly. This is not a case of parental discipline gone wrong. This is about power. Control. And a man who thought no one would believe a child, until the bruises told the truth. She walked the jury through the timeline, displayed side-by-side images of Tyler's injuries with timestamps and photos from the cabin break-in. Then she played the 911 call. Ryan's voice came through the speakers first. Calm but clipped. "He's here. He's got a crowbar. My nephew and I are barricaded in the bedroom. He's screaming that he's going to kill us." Then you hear it. Victor, faint in the background, but crystal clear on clean audio. "I'm gonna kill all of you. Tyler, you're dead. Then your cop father. Then me." The room went ice still. You could hear people breathing. A woman on the jury put her hand to her mouth. Another shook her head slowly like she was trying to erase what she just heard. And that was just day 1. Day 2, Tyler took the stand. 16, dressed in a jacket and tie, hands folded, voice firm. Rachel guided him through the events with calm precision. "Can you describe what happened that morning?" Tyler swallowed. "We argued. He said I was wasting my life with football. I said he never came to my games. He grabbed me. Slammed me against the wall. Told me I needed to learn my place. And did you hit him back?" "No. I pushed him away once. So I could breathe." Rachel paused. "Why didn't you call the police right away?" Tyler looked at the jury, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because he said if I did, I'd never see my dad again. He said he had connections. That he could prove my dad was unfit. That people like him always win." Porter tried to shake him on cross. "Your father's a police captain. Isn't it convenient you ran to him?" "I ran to safety. Not to a badge." "Were you coached to say that?" "No, sir. I lived it." Boom. That was it. The moment the jury saw not a rebellious teenager, but a survivor. A kid who had been backed into a corner by a grown man and still didn't lash out. Even Jessica took the stand. "I didn't want to see it," she admitted. "Victor was what I thought I needed, stability. But I was wrong. Tyler was afraid to come home, and I didn't listen. That's on me." Porter didn't even try to cross her. The air in that courtroom had changed. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a funeral. For the story Victor had been telling. The verdict came back in just under 9 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Assault on a minor. Domestic violence. Stalking. Attempted burglary. Terroristic threats. Violation of a court-issued restraining order. Victor didn't react when the foreperson read the words. Not a twitch, not a blink. He just stared straight ahead like the world had gone on without him. But Tyler's hand gripped mine under the table. And that grip said everything. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. It felt surreal, like we were finally getting to breathe in a room that had been underwater for a year. Rachel Morrison didn't hold back. "Mr. Harrison didn't make a mistake," she told the court. "He made a choice. Multiple choices. Over weeks, months, years. To intimidate, to isolate, And finally, to inflict physical violence on a child in his care. And when that child refused to break, he escalated to something far more dangerous. This wasn't just abuse. This was a campaign of control. And it ends today. Then Tyler stood. I hadn't asked him to speak. Didn't want him to. But he did anyway. I used to think adults were always right. He said, voice cracking just once. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I was respectful, maybe it would stop. But people like Victor don't stop. They get worse. And I'm just glad someone believed me before it was too late. Jessica sobbed silently behind him. When it was Victor's turn to speak, he stood slowly. I was under stress, he said. My intentions were never to harm. I just lost control. Judge Martinez stared at him with the kind of calm that makes grown men squirm. Mr. Harrison, she said, you lost control, yes. But not of your emotions, of the story. You lost control of the mask you wore long enough for the world to see who you really are. She looked down at her notes, then back at him like she already knew what sentence she'd carry in her soul for the rest of her career. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison. No possibility of parole before 18 years served. You will be entered into the child abuse registry, restricted from contacting the victim or his family in perpetuity, and transferred immediately into state custody. That was it. Victor Harrison, Mr. Perfect contractor, community hero, stepdad of the year, was let out in shackles, staring at the floor like the earth had betrayed him. He didn't look at Jessica. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Tyler. And Tyler? He didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't speak. But I saw it, the exact moment that fear lifted from his shoulders like a burden returned to its sender. It was over. Victor was gone. 6 months later, Tyler started sleeping through the night again. No more jumping at loud noises. No more flinching when someone raised their voice. The boy who used to check every door locked twice before bed now walked around barefoot, headphones on, singing under his breath like nothing could touch him. Because nothing could. Not anymore. He made varsity that fall, starting linebacker. First play of the season, he laid out a kid twice his size, then jogged back to the huddle like he just brushed lint off his shirt. I stood in the bleachers with my brother Ryan and tried not to tear up like a cliché dad in a Law and Order episode. Jessica came to the game too. She sat on the far end of the bleachers, blanket on her lap, coffee in hand. When Tyler scored, she stood and clapped, quietly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure she had the right. But Tyler looked over, saw her, and nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a first step. She moved into a small apartment 2 blocks from mine. Started over. Got a job at the county library. Began volunteering with a domestic violence nonprofit. She and Tyler were rebuilding something, not pretending the past didn't happen, but facing it honestly. That's the thing about damage. You don't undo it. You carry it. You reframe it. You let it become part of your architecture without letting it define your foundation. Me? I took leave after the trial. 2 weeks of nothing but hiking, breathing, and watching the dog try to kill a raccoon through a glass door. When I came back, the precinct felt different. Not because the job had changed, but because I had. See, for years I thought the badge was my strongest weapon. Turns out it wasn't. It was my voice. Not the one that gives commands. Not the one that testifies. The one that says, I believe you. The one that tells your son, you don't have to earn your safety, it's already yours. That's the kind of protection no badge can give. The kind that builds a boy back from trauma and turns him into a man who doesn't carry silence like it's part of his spine. One night, Tyler and I were on the porch, just the two of us. He looked over and said, You know, I used to think I was weak because I didn't fight back harder. I said, You're not weak. You're free. And that's way harder to earn. He nodded slowly, like he finally understood. And then, he smiled. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't a performative, teenage shrug smile. It was real. Peaceful. And in that moment, I knew the war was over. Not just the trial. Not just the charges. But the war inside him. About a month after the trial, I got a letter in the mail. Not email. Not a text. A real, honest-to-God handwritten letter, folded into thirds like something out of another decade. Return address, State Correctional Facility. Victor. I turned it over in my hands for a minute, debated lighting it on fire. Instead, I opened it. 3 pages of wordy, passive-aggressive rambling. No apology. No accountability. Just lines like, "I regret how things escalated. There was a lot of tension in the house. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just didn't feel heard." Not once did he say Tyler's name. Not once did he take ownership for the choices he made, the hands he raised, the threats he screamed, the years he stole. I didn't respond. But I did photocopy the letter and mail it straight to Rachel Morrison, our DA. She laughed when she read it. "Great," she said. "He just gave us evidence for the appeals board. This reads like a blueprint for denial." Meanwhile, back at home, Tyler had started seeing a therapist. Voluntarily. "I just want to understand why I still get nervous when someone shuts a door too hard," he told me one morning. I said, "Because your body remembers things even when your brain says you're safe. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you healing." He nodded. Didn't argue. And that right there? That was growth. The kind of growth people overlook because it's quiet. Slow. Not the kind you throw a party for, but the kind you build a future on. Jessica called a few days later, voice shaky. "Arthur, I want to talk to you about co-parenting. Real co-parenting. I know I dropped the ball before. But I'm trying now. Not to fix everything. Just to be better." I didn't say yes right away. I made her sit with that silence. She needed to. But after a beat I said, "Start by showing up. Keep showing up. No more excuses." "I will. We'll see." I believed Tyler when he said he'd keep fighting. Jessica? I needed actions, not promises. But that's how healing works, isn't it? One boundary at a time. One no. Before the next. Maybe. That night, I sat on the deck watching the sky go orange over the rooftops. Tyler came out, dropped into the chair next to mine, and handed me a Coke. "Coach says I've got a shot at state if I keep my numbers up," he said, trying to sound casual. "You will," I said. "And when you do, I'll be there, front row, embarrassing you in front of your friends." He laughed, shook his head. "You already do." "Good. I'm not done being loud for my kid. Not now. Not ever." Victor's sentencing made headlines, but his legacy was quieter, the kind that leaves scars, not monuments. The precinct moved on fast. Cases kept coming in, the city didn't pause. But every time I walked past the holding cell where Victor once sat, I remembered how small he looked when the lies stopped working. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't feared. He was cornered. The week after sentencing, CPS officially closed Tyler's case. Patricia Menda, the caseworker, called me personally. "Captain Kane," she said, "this isn't just a closed file. This is a success story. I wish we had more like it." I thanked her. But I knew better. We weren't a success story. We were just one family that managed to get out before the worst happened. Tyler started tutoring freshmen after school, math and history. Said it helped him focus. He also started seeing someone. A girl named Liv. Smart, sarcastic, played cello in the school orchestra. He brought her home once for dinner. I grilled chicken, tried not to interrogate her like I was building a profile. But she held her own. When Tyler left the room, she looked at me and said, "I know what happened. You don't have to protect me from it." I raised an eyebrow. "He told you everything?" She nodded. "Said if I couldn't handle it, he'd understand. But I told him, I don't want a polished version. I want the real one." Smart girl. Later that night, I found a note in Tyler's room. Not hidden, just left out like it didn't need hiding anymore. "For the first time, I don't feel broken. Just rebuilding." That was all it said. And I thought, good. That's enough. Jessica kept her word, for the most part. Therapy. Time. Boundaries. Tyler started seeing her every other weekend again, this time on his terms. They went to lunch, the movies, the bookstore he used to love as a kid. He came home quiet after those visits. Not sad. Just processing. Which is what healing actually looks like. Me? I went back to work, but I took a step back from the edge. Started mentoring new recruits. Talking more to the ones who'd seen too much, too fast. Because I didn't just want to enforce the law anymore. I wanted to protect the people who protect others. And maybe, in some strange way, that included me too. 6 months turned into a year. And one morning, I woke up to the sound of laughter in the kitchen, 2 voices. Tyler's and Jessica's. I stood in the hallway, just listening. They were cooking breakfast. Badly. She burned the eggs. He teased her for calling the spatula the flipper thing. It was nothing dramatic. No movie music in the background. Just two people rebuilding a bridge, one awkward pancake at a time. That was the moment I knew we'd crossed some invisible threshold. Not everything was fixed. Not everything would be. But the worst of it? It was behind us. Victor, meanwhile, had filed 2 appeals. Both were denied without hearing. The prison counselor noted he showed no signs of accountability or remorse. Apparently, he was still telling anyone who would listen that the court system had overreacted. Good. Let him sit with that story. Let it rot. Back home, Tyler started working with the youth program I'd helped launch years ago. Coaching. Mentoring. Teaching younger kids how to handle conflict, recognize danger, speak up. I came to one of his sessions and watched from the back. He stood in front of a group of 14-year-olds and said, "Sometimes the scariest thing in the world is telling the truth. But you have to do it anyway. Because your silence protects no one. Especially not you." That's when I knew he was going to be okay. Better than okay. He was becoming the kind of man I hoped he'd become. Not in spite of what he survived, but because he refused to let it define him. That night, I pulled out a folder from my desk. Inside, all the documents from the case. Photos. Statements. Copies of the court transcripts. I looked at them for a long time. Then I sealed the folder, labeled it for Tyler. If he ever wants it. And I locked it away. Because some stories don't need to be told right away. Some just need to rest, until the person who lived them is ready to own them fully. That was his journey now. Mine wasn't over. But it was lighter. I got promoted. Didn't expect it, didn't campaign for it, just walked into a Monday morning briefing and found the envelope on my desk. City Commissioner seal. Inside, a letter. "Captain Kane, in light of your service record, leadership, and outstanding conduct in a high-profile family crisis, we're offering you the position of Assistant Chief. Your discretion and integrity have set the standard. We believe you're the man to help shape the future of this department." I read it twice. Then I folded it quietly and slid it back into the envelope. I didn't feel proud. Not yet. What I felt was the absence of that old weight, the guilt, the helplessness, the rage that had clung to my uniform like sweat. I wasn't carrying it anymore. I was just standing up straighter. I told Tyler that night while we were at the diner we always go to after his games. He was halfway through a double cheeseburger when I said it. He blinked, swallowed, and said, "You earned it." Then he added, without even looking up, "Victor would hate that." I laughed into my coffee. The thing is, Tyler doesn't talk about Victor much anymore. He names him now. Doesn't say him or my stepdad. He says Victor, like he's a file that got archived in the back of a cabinet. Still there, but no longer active. Jessica sent a text later that week. "Thank you for protecting our son. And for giving me space to learn how to be a mother again." It was the first time she hadn't tried to explain, justify, or circle the wound. Just gratitude. That night, I walked out to the porch. The air was crisp, stars bright over the trees. Tyler was inside playing music, something soft, low. And I thought about how far we'd come. From a bruised kid in a garage, trying to protect his abuser, to a young man with a voice, a future, and a family rebuilt from the ashes. I still had the badge. Still had the rank. But now, I also had peace. And for a man who spent most of his life cleaning up other people's chaos, that felt like the biggest win of all. Spring brought changes. Tyler got his driver's license, finally. After all the chaos, all the stops and starts, he passed his test and came home with that paper permit like it was a gold medal. I let him take the truck out alone for the first time that weekend. He was only gone an hour, just to the bookstore and back, but I sat by the window like a nervous rookie dad. Didn't move. Didn't breathe right until the headlights pulled back in. He walked through the door with a grin and a new book in his hand. No crashes. No tickets. Didn't even run over a squirrel. "Proud of you," I said, and I meant it so deep it hit my spine. Jessica came by the next day. Not unannounced. She called first. Said she wanted to talk in person. We sat on the porch while Tyler was at practice. She didn't try to justify anything. Just said, "You were right about him. I should have seen it." I didn't want to. That's not an excuse. That's just the truth. I nodded. Let her sit in the silence. I'm not here to rewrite the past, she said. But I want to be part of the future. Whatever Tyler allows. Whatever you allow. That was a hard thing to say. I saw the effort in every syllable. He decides what he needs, I said. But if you show up like this, honestly, he'll let you in. She nodded, wiped a tear, stood. As she left, she touched my shoulder. You saved him. I shook my head. He saved himself. I just made sure someone was watching the door. Tyler came home an hour later, sweaty and tired and grinning. He flopped on the couch, threw a football up in the air once, caught it with one hand, and said, "Mom stopped by?" She did. What did she say? That she wants to be better. Tyler didn't respond right away. Just stared at the ceiling. Then, good. I want to be better too. I didn't say anything. Just let that truth hang in the air like a promise. Because after everything, we finally had space to grow. To heal. To live. It was the 1-year anniversary of the arrest. We didn't mark the day with a ceremony. No speeches. No. Look how far we've come. Moments. Instead, Tyler and I went fishing. No phones. No distractions. Just 2 folding chairs and the steady sound of water lapping against the banks of Lake Monroe. Tyler cast his line, missed, tried again. Think the fish remember us? He asked. Only if you gave them trauma, I said. He laughed, leaned back in his chair. I still can't believe he's really gone. He's not gone, I said. He's just not here. And he never will be again. Tyler nodded. Then, you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't called you that day? All the time. But I didn't say that. I said, you did call me. That's what matters. You reached out. And I came. He looked at me. Always will? Always. That's the kind of promise I don't need to explain. Just one I intend to keep. We caught 3 fish. Released them all. Not because we're noble, but because either of us wanted to clean them. Back home, Tyler showed me a draft of his college essay. Title. And the strongest thing I did was leave. I read the first paragraph and had to put it down. Not because it was bad, because it was too good. Too honest. He wrote about the fear. The guilt. The quiet shame of being hit and still worrying about hurting someone else's feelings by telling. But he also wrote about the night in the cabin. The sirens. The crack of the crowbar against the door. And how, in that moment, he decided he would never let fear dictate his future again. I want to work with kids one day, he said quietly. Maybe social work. Maybe therapy. I want to be the person I needed back then. You already are, I said. That night, I sat on the porch alone, sipping from a chipped mug, watching the stars settle like dust over the dark. Somewhere in the house, Tyler was laughing at something on his phone. Jessica was texting about summer plans. Ryan had sent me a photo of his dog in a ridiculous sweater. And for the first time in years, there was nothing that needed fixing. Just peace. And that peace? It was earned. Summer came in quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice after years of sirens, after courtrooms and crisis calls and the weight of waiting for the next disaster. We grilled on Sundays. Tyler started running in the mornings, said it cleared his head. I joined him once, pulled a hamstring, and made him swear not to tell anyone. He told everyone. Jessica got a cat. Named it Frank, after Lieutenant Mitchell, who took it surprisingly well. She and Tyler had started something that looked like real family again. Not a perfect one, just honest. They had lunch once a week. Sometimes he came back annoyed, sometimes thoughtful, sometimes lighter. That's how you know it's real. One day, he asked if we could stop by the cabin. The cabin. I said, sure. Why? He shrugged. I want to see the place. Not because of him. Because of me. So we went. The door still bore the scars of that night, the replaced frame, the new locks. But the bones of it were the same. The porch, the chairs, the old pine tree that leaned like it was listening. We didn't say much. Just stood there, taking it in. After a few minutes, Tyler said, I thought I'd hate it. But I don't. I think I needed to see it without the fear in it. You did that, I told him. You reclaimed it. He nodded. I'm thinking about writing about this for my interview at State. You should. He paused. I don't want to be the abused kid, though. You're not, I said. You're the survivor who chose not to stay silent. He didn't smile, but his shoulders relaxed. And that was better. On the way back, we stopped at a gas station. He bought a Gatorade. I grabbed coffee. And while we waited in line, a woman with 2 small kids looked over at Tyler and said, "You played for Northside, right?" He blinked. "Yeah." "You're number 42? He smiled. "Yeah. My son talks about you all the time. Says you're the reason he joined." Tyler said thank you, shook her hand, and we left. But in the car, he just stared out the window. That felt weird. What, being recognized? No. Being remembered for something else. I didn't answer. Because I didn't have to. Tyler's college acceptance came by email. I heard the shout from his room before I saw the screen. He burst into the living room, phone in hand, eyes wide. I got in. Which one? State. Full ride. I didn't speak. Just stood. Pulled him into the kind of hug that presses a whole year of hell into a single moment of relief. He pulled back, grinning, wiping his face with his sleeve. They said my essay was one of the most powerful they've read. Damn right it was. Later that week, we drove to campus together. Just to walk it. Get a feel. It was a crisp afternoon, students milling around, flyers taped to every post. Tyler didn't say much at first, just looked. Took it in. Then he pointed to the student center. They have a mentoring program. For at-risk teens. I think I want to apply. I nodded. You'll be good at it. I think I need to do it. That's the thing about healing. It's not just about moving on. Sometimes it's about reaching back, grabbing the hand of the kid you used to be and pulling someone else forward with you. Back home, I cleared out the garage. Made room for his dorm stuff. Found a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside, baby shoes. Hospital bracelet. First grade drawing labeled my dad as a cop and a hero. He's not that little boy anymore. And I'm not just a badge anymore. We're more now. We're a family that walked through fire and didn't burn. The night before Tyler left for college, we sat on the back porch, just like we used to. 2 lawn chairs. 1 cooler. No agenda. He stared out at the yard, silent. You nervous? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Just tapped his fingers against the bottle in his hand like it might help him think. Not really, he said finally. More like, I don't know. It's weird leaving now that things are good. You think something's gonna fall apart if you're not here to keep it in check? He gave me a look. That used to be your job, remember? I laughed quietly. Still is. Just looks different now. We fell into a familiar silence, the kind where nothing needed filling. The crickets did the talking. The wind in the trees handled the rest. Then Tyler said, Do you think it'll always be with me? What happened? The memory? Yeah. Probably. But the fear? No, I said. That part fades. Slowly. But it does. And it gets replaced by something stronger. Like what? Clarity. Confidence. Knowing what you'll never accept again. That kind of strength can't be faked. He nodded, eyes glossy but steady. I want to be someone who makes other people feel safe. You already are. He left the next morning. No drama. No tears. Just a hug that lingered half a second longer than usual. And a look that said everything that didn't need saying. Later that day, I stood in his empty room. Posters still on the wall. Chargers tangled on the floor. But the energy was different. It wasn't hollow. It was hopeful. Tyler's first call from college came at midnight. Just wanted to say thanks, Dad. For everything. I feel free. I didn't cry. Not then. Just smiled in the dark and said, You earned that freedom, son. And as I hung up, I looked around my quiet house and realized something simple, powerful, and permanent. He's safe. He's healing. And I did my job. Not as a captain. Not as a soldier. As a father. And that made me whole.